We don't have control over the sky. See, we did everything long distance, and we're out of cruise missiles. We're out of the joint standoff weapons. Now we have to go in, and as we go in, we're finding out that the Iranian air defense is very much active. They're shooting down our drones. They hit an F-35. They're causing other planes to break off. We don't have control of the skies that he's implying. We don't know what we're bombing. He has no clue what he's talking about. He's sitting there playing a peacetime war game in his head, forgetting that the people who are executing this war plan, there is no war plan. Everything we're doing today was not pre-planned, ladies and gentlemen. There is no war plan. We are making it up as we go along. So McKenzie, go to hell. Really. No one should put that man on TV anymore, because what good is he? He's not telling the truth. He's implying that this is a plan. There is no plan, McKenzie, and you know there is no plan, because the plan you executed, which I know intimately, didn't involve us waiting 3 weeks to start putting forces in. We would have gone in on day one, blowing the crap out of the shore defenses, pushing in, seizing territory, pushing in further. But you know, you don't take a MEU and push in too far. If you know anything about Marine expeditionary units, the first MEU will come in and seize the initial objective. Then another one has to come in behind it. But normally you have to park 2 more. So you need 3. That's a brigade. You need another brigade to come in and push more inland. So now you're talking about a division's worth of troops. We don't have that. We have 2 MEUs. You think they're going to do what? Push in? They're not pushing in. They're going to die. And what, you're going to bring in paratroopers? God bless the airborne. But you know what? They'll just jump in and die. Think Arnhem. Think 1st British Airborne Division. That's what will happen to any paratroopers going. Rangers, they will die. Delta Force, let me, guys, give you just a little brief secret about Delta Force in Desert Storm. They were put into Western Iraq. Every single insertion was detected as it happened. They were compromised. They didn't spend, this wasn't Delta Force stealthing around. They were running for their lives from day one. They ran. They were running, fleeing. Brave guys. I'm not putting them down. But to think that we're sitting there, you're going to go into Iran and we're going to control anything, we will control nothing. Nothing, because there's no plan. What makes a military unit professional isn't just the training of the troops and the quality of the leadership. It's the quality of the plan. And the plan involves logistics and a whole bunch of other stuff that just isn't happening. We are literally making it up as we go along. There is no plan. And McKenzie knows it. McKenzie should understand there is no plan.
Here's the interesting part. So you have just very cogently and passionately laid out what is necessary if there was a plan, and what if you were going to make effective use of ground troops, you would have to have all those things: numbers, you would have to have training and logistics, and a plan to go along with it. If you had that, then you could say that could potentially provide some leverage for negotiations and for diplomacy, as it turns out. Well, our former chief diplomat, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, apparently doesn't know any of the things you just said, because here he was talking about how just the presence of physical boots somehow magically gives diplomacy a chance.
But you also move them there for security, troops safe that are in the region. So there's lots of radar systems, counter air systems that are being moved into place as well. You do move it there for a purpose of leverage and negotiation. Mr. Witkoff's position is much stronger when there's a bunch of Marines sitting on your doorstep. This is not time to pull back. They still have systems. You can see they're still able to fire rockets, missiles, not only from the Houthis and from Hezbollah in Lebanon, but directly from Iran, threatening our allies in the region, the Gulf states, the Emirates. We need to take down this system entirely.
I'm sorry, I about lost it there, because Gary had a new warning system for Pompeo, which was perfectly self-appropriate for what the world he said there. Because he's saying that last part there, that we have to take down the system entirely. And as you just said, you would need at least a brigade, 3 separate MEUs to take even one piece of terrain. And he's talking about taking down the whole system. I mean, literally, what in the hell is going on with the senior echelon of our country intellectually?
We've been imbued with arrogance and ignorance. It's a horrible combination, because the ignorant, arrogant, you get people like Pompeo. Again, Americans, understand, we're the best when we have a just cause. I mean, we sort of need a just cause to begin. Anything else than that, like right now, even if we were military proficient, which we're not, this isn't a just cause. This would be the equivalent of cheering on the Nazis. Yes, I said that because we are committing a war of aggression. That's the same crime that the Nazis were hung by the deck after Nuremberg. We're committing the same crime. the exact same crime. But you know, you have to have military proficiency here. You have to have Marines sitting on a ship, unable to project power forward. Nobody's scared? You think the Iranians are scared of 4,000 Marines? They're not scared. I mean, the Iranians are saying, please bring them, because 4,000 Marines, no matter how well trained they are, have zero combat capacity when it comes to meaningfully affecting the outcome of this battle. None. They'll just all die. It would take us 900,000 to 1.2 million troops to physically defeat the Iranians if we could do it. I don't think we can, because we'd have to project this power. Again, Curly, you know this. You know what it means to put a division on the ground, and every kilometer forward complicates your logistic sustainability, your ability to maintain. Tanks just don't keep driving. They break down. They need to be repaired. Engines need to be overhauled. Where do you do that in combat? There's a whole system that has to go in. It's not just about putting boots on the ground with guns. You got to put things on the ground. You got to put fuel. You got to put all the stuff that makes stuff work. And that means you have to have planned it. It has to be there ready. And you have to have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, because my God, if that LST comes in with your stuff that you're going to use and it gets hit and blows up, you better have that spare LST coming in with the spare equipment, because that's what you need to win this war. We don't have any of that going on right now. This is a tragic joke. The only good news is I can't believe there's a military commander out there who would execute any of the orders people are talking about right now. I just want people, again, I love my Marines. God, I'm very proud of being a Marine, and I'm proud of the Marines that are out there. But in May of 1975, the Cambodians, the Khmer Rouge, captured the Mayaguez. It took American sailors prisoner, took them off the ship. We thought they took them to this little island called Koh Tang Island. And so the decision was to take a Marine battalion landing team and assault the island and get these guys taken care of. Why not? We're America. It's just the Khmer Rouge. What the hell can they do? Intelligence says there's 30 to 50 of them. So we brought in the Marines, 11 helicopters in the first wave. 3 of them were shot down, killing a whole bunch of Marines and the Air Force guys. Of the 8 remaining, 5 were so badly damaged they had to flee, some of them unable to dislodge their Marines. So we're down to 3 helicopters now, and we have Marines on an island, not insufficient numbers, because that's what happens if you don't get the full complement in. Now you have Marines there who are in danger of being overrun because there is 300 to 500 Khmer Rouge heavily dug in, knowing what they were doing. And we ended up in a day-long battle that we lost. We lost the Battle of Koh Tang Island. We had to withdraw, leaving our dead on the ground. Worse, we left 3 Marines. An M60 team on the left flank was left. 3 Marines were abandoned by the Marines there because we left in a panic. They were captured and executed by the Khmer Rouge. That's what will happen if we go into Karg Island or any other place. We don't have the forces to do this.
You mentioned something about, we're talking so many things here about the leaders and putting troops in positions where they can not succeed, as you say, because they're not having the resource or the plan. There was a comment, I'd like your viewpoint on it this morning. You said a second ago, one other thing I think is also much more important than people recognize, and that's having a just cause to fight for. Not just because you're told to or because of something else fake. And this is what I believe. I'd like your view specifically. And this is from Secretary Hegseth this morning, where he's trying to give the justification to the troops as to why they should fight. Tell me, as a former combat soldier yourself, is this going to make you want to fight more?
As far as President Trump and boots on the ground, I don't understand why the base, which they have already, they understand, wouldn't have faith in his ability to execute on this. Look at his track record of pursuing peace through strength, America first outcomes. What he's simply saying, and it's exactly true, and I've said from this podium too, we're not going to foreclose any option. You can't fight and win a war if you tell your adversary what you are willing to do or what you are not willing to do, to include boots on the ground. Our adversary right now thinks there are 15 different ways we could come at them with boots on the ground. And guess what? There are. We're not due. But if anybody has internalized the lessons of Iraq and Afghanistan as the first one, President Trump, to call them out for what they are, he's not going to repeat those lessons.
And sorry, about right after that, one of the other sound bites was, he said, listen, these guys know they're fighting for their future. They're fighting to make sure there are no weapons of mass destruction, no nuclear weapons ever come in. They're fighting for their children. That's what he said today. How do you think that was resonating well with the troops?
I don't know. Lance Corporal Schmuckatelli back in the day, he just cared about, Lance Corporal Rodriguez and Lance Corporal Smith to his left and his right. He cared about, not dishonoring the Marine Corps. He cared about being able to execute his mission when called upon. He was worried about whether or not how he'd respond under fire. His corporal and his sergeant likewise were worried about the tactical mission in front of them. The lieutenants were as well. I don't think they spent too much time worrying about the grander geopolitical consequences of what they're doing or what's right and wrong. There's no right and wrong in combat. There's life and death. Your job is to do what you're told to do and trust that your leadership is making the right decisions. Trust that your leadership has done its job. Trust that there's a plan, that when you're going in there, there's a plan to back you up. And that works. So those Marines will fight. But you know what will happen, Colonel, when there comes a point where they're on the ground and it suddenly becomes clear that they've been betrayed, that there is no plan, and that there is no, nobody's coming to save them, that this has gone to hell in a handbasket, and that suddenly they realize, wait a minute, we're invading another country for no reason. The morale will plummet. This happened in Vietnam. I wasn't in Vietnam, but I understand, the first people that went into Vietnam were true believers. My father was a true believer. He deployed in Vietnam in 1966, early on, Air Force, but he believed in the mission. He believed that we were doing the right thing. But look at the people that came out in 1970 after Tet. They didn't believe it anymore. They lost faith. They realized that we were not the good guys in this fight. We were the bad guys. And the total collapse. Remember, it took us a decade to rebuild the military after that because everybody lost faith. The military today, we have the internet, we have all this. I think that there are people now that realize that we're not the good guys here. Now, those Marines on there on the Tripoli and on the other ships, they're training, they're practicing, they're getting ready, they're steeling themselves for combat. But I think if it goes in and they execute it, great. But when the first wave of Ospreys come in and 4 of them on the ground, all those Marines are dead, and the other Marines are on the ground, and they didn't get the logistics that was in the 5th Osprey. They had to turn around, and they're under fire right now. They're running out of ammunition. Right about that time, it's going to hit them that we're the bad guys and we're losing. There's not going to be this, let's die for God, country, and America. It's going to be, ask the people in Iraq near the end. Did they believe in the mission? No. They were deployed there. They didn't believe in the mission because they knew that the mission was a lie. Right now,
I can just add to that. I went in during the surge of the Afghanistan war. And so I was there 2010, 2011. And I was, my job required me to go down at the tactical level and see what was happening at the tip of the spear on all these different combat brigades. And to a man, everybody that I've talked to, which was anywhere from captains, lieutenants, and battalion commanders primarily, all the guys on the ground said, we have no idea why we're even standing here. All we're doing is doing the tactical mission because that's what we're told to do. But the orders from above make no sense because this is not accomplishing anything. So they, at that point, and tying to your point a second ago, we're just fighting for each other to make sure that they could all come home. But they realized that the mission itself was unsolvable.
Yeah, and that's where we're at right now. I mean, look, there's no doubt in my mind that American fighting men and women will acquit themselves well when the time comes in terms of their initial tactical proficiency. They're very highly trained. The problem is we don't have a plan. I mean, this is the ultimate betrayal. We've got these great young Americans who are willing to give their lives for their country, willing to. They don't want to, but they're willing to. And they will do what we ask them to do. But it's the ultimate betrayal when we don't have a plan, when we haven't thought this thing through, when we send them forward into harm's way and they start dying, getting wounded, and there's no plan. And then you find out there's not just no plan, but there's no legitimacy to your actions. Colonel, and you know this. You know that war, it breaks people. I mean, some people are strong and we can put forward a good face and all that stuff. But anybody who's been there, done that, and got the T-shirt, wakes up in the morning troubled by demons, troubled by the devil, because war requires you to do things that aren't normal. It's not natural. It's one thing to train for. It's another thing to actually do it. People can deal with the consequences of war when they look in the mirror and they say, I was fighting for a just cause. You know, my comrades to my left and my right died. I'm very unhappy they died, but it was for a just cause. It was a sacrifice worthy of the loss. I can wrestle with these demons, but I can get through the day because I'm convinced that had I not done what I did, evil would have prevailed. But what happens when you look in the mirror and you say, everything was a lie? These guys died for no reason. I killed women and children for no reason. You know, I did horrible things for no reason, no justification. You know, and then you're broken. That's when the spirit's broken. That's why we got so many veterans committing suicide every day, because they've lost their way, because the wars we asked them to fight for 20 years, for 2 decades, were not just wars. Invading and occupying Iraq was not just. Invading and occupying Afghanistan was not just. You know, and the way we behaved there, kicking down the doors of Iraqi civilians who just wanted to live. They weren't Saddam Hussein. They just wanted to live. They were at their home. Imagine somebody coming to your street, kicking down the doors of your neighbors while their kids are at home, pulling them out, making them sit there and cry. And if, you know, little Johnny Tucker was a little slow coming down the stairs, you shot and killed him in front of his family. The father jumped up because you just shot his son, and you killed them. The mother screams, you butt stroke her. Now you've killed an entire family. For what? For what? An Afghan wedding party, put a bomb on them. We killed 75. For what? And we did this over and over and over and over again for decades straight. And this is what's happening here. The guys that are fighting this war right now, someday these pilots, they're high-fiving each other. They're going to be puking their guts out in the toilet when they realize what they've done, what they're responsible for. And where's America going to be? You got that yellow bumper sticker on the back of your car? Go to hell. Because you got a yellow bumper sticker on the back of the car, then go to the VA and change out the colostomy bag of some 30-year-old kid who lost his bowels when he was 19. Go find, you know, everybody loves the soldiers, you know, hey, you look good in uniform, you know, girls, hey, I want to marry you, you know, marry them. They go off to war, they come back and they're screwed up, man. They got hit with one too many IEDs. Their brain's a little rattled. And he's not the man that you married now, and you abandoned him. Now he feels the abandonment, and maybe he's hurt and he starts doing drugs and he's on the street homeless. I drove an ambulance for my fire department for a long time. We picked up homeless veterans all the time and took them to the VA. Abandoned by a society that claimed that we support our veterans. No, we don't. And the best way to support a veteran is to make sure we don't send them to an unjust war.
Yeah. Yeah, that's obviously. I'll just say I know a lot of people may feel uncomfortable about the coarseness of what you're saying right here, but the reason why we need to say this is because it's reality. This nonsense and this fiction that the likes of Lindsey Graham, who had the audacity to say, God bless all you troops who were going there before any of them died. And now over 330 have been wounded, and at least 13 that we know of have been killed. It just angers me more than I can say, the audacity to say this. Or these guys that are saying, you know, that these ground operations now, yeah, there'll be some sacrifices and losses. That's what happens in war. I mean, you know, Mark Levin is the latest one here, definitely saying we should go in and take the reprocessed material out of Iran, whatever the cost is. And I'm like, okay, you know what, Mark, you lead the way, or your son or your daughter, your family member. Let's see if you put them in the lead way, the lead element there, to realize that every word you just said is coarse and true and is waiting for our people here because of these absurd policies. That's what I think is important for us to convey.
I agree. And again, I apologize. I get a little emotional.
No, don't apologize. I didn't even attempt to stop you because you're just echoing what I feel right now as well.
Yeah, you know, war is hell. To me, the ideal military career would be 20 years of training, and you'd have a bunch of achievement medals on your chest for achieving good things. No combat medals, no nothing. Not even deployment, because ideally we'd live in a world where we wouldn't have to project force. That's what we need diplomacy for. People need to understand that the reason why we have military forces engaged in Iran right now is that we don't have diplomacy. We aren't doing our job. You know, we're sitting here really willing to spend $200 billion on losing a war, when Marco Rubio has literally gutted the State Department staff. You know, we're not even getting into arms control. We don't have any arms control. There's no more treaties at all. It's crazy. Nuclear anarchy is all around us. Two nuclear powers, Israel and the United States, are attacking a nation that had a nuclear program under monitoring by the International Atomic Energy Agency in accordance with the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, which means we're not supposed to be doing this. They're supposed to be protected, but we're violating that, which means that nuclear non-proliferation is no longer a thing. People need to understand that in Trump's made-up manufactured case about Iranian nuclear capabilities, he's just ensuring that other nations, there's going to be more nuclear armed states in the world, not less. We're going in the wrong direction here. This is just fundamentally bad, but this is what happens when you promote people that shouldn't be promoted. Colonel, you know this. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Pete Hegseth would be fired as an operations officer of any battalion he served in for half the crap that he's pulled here. If you had an operations officer brief you the way Hegseth is, with just platitudes and no detail, just throw out there, or give a prayer where he's quoting the Old Testament about how the religious aspects were, he'd be fired on the spot. The Marine Corps that I was in would have fired him on the spot. You're allowed to practice your religion, but you're not allowed to project your religion on the armed services of the United States of America. And that's what he's doing right now. He's a disgrace. He's a disgrace to the profession that he once served in. He's a disgrace to the profession he ostensibly leads today as Secretary of Defense, because he's not the Secretary of War. Congress hasn't deemed him to be such. He just made that stuff up and put it up out there because he wants to look and sound tough. The man is incompetent as the day is long. He may be able to bench 315 pounds. God bless you, Pete. I mean, I've never been able to do that, but I've been able to think, and he can't. I'll take 50 over bench press every day of the week.
Right out of the gates. You remember the whole thing about Signal Gate and all that, right? That's the guy that did operational planning on an unsecured but encrypted signal chat, private signal chat there, and then lied about it and said, no, there wasn't any of that going on. Every person in uniform that's been in service any more than, 3 or 4 weeks would certainly know that was 100% against the Army regulations, and anyone else in the military who did that, like as a major, for example, which he was at one time, would have been court-martialed or severely, Article 15, something like that. You would have gotten retribution and immediately, no questions asked. And then there he is leading it and then lying about it along with everybody else that was on there. So that was just a symbol of things to come, and it's only gotten worse. And he talks about no rules of engagement. We're not going to have any silly rules of engagement. No mercy, no quarter. I mean, those are all projections of war crimes. So to buttress your argument, not only is he not qualified for a position, but he is unqualified as an American to be leading this, and is potentially leading others into war crimes. It's that serious, in my view.
Colonel, I couldn't agree more. I mean, the American people need to understand this. We're not on the right side of history right now. And if we don't correct course, we don't live in a constitutional republic anymore. We have a president who has foregone the concept of law, the rule of law. He says, I don't believe in law. I believe in my own personal morality. Problematic. And he doesn't care about Congress. He didn't even try to go to Congress to brings up people say, well, the War Powers Act. No, the War Powers Act requires there to be an imminent threat. There has to be an imminent threat. There was no imminent threat. What about Iran's nuclear stuff? Gosh, we were diplomatically engaged with them and actually had a deal worked out, ready to be signed. Wow. So there's no imminent threat. This is just straight up unconstitutional as the day is long. It's a violation of the United Nations Charter. Well, Scott, that's international law. That doesn't matter. No, it's the Constitution because, geez, supremacy clause. We did, the president signed the charter, Senate ratified it, and it became the supreme law of the land here in the United States. The whole War Powers Act 1996 is premised on the validity of the Geneva Conventions, which serve as the cornerstone of the law of war manual. We are committing war crimes, nonstop war crimes. We have to correct this. So when this is all said and done, we're the nation of jurisdiction. We need to hold these people accountable right now. And I'm telling you right off the bat, Pete Hegseth must be arrested, tried, and if he's committed the crimes, and I believe he has, convicted. I'm not arguing for the death penalty. I don't want to see him shot, but I would like to see him spend the rest of his life in jail. Sort of the, modern day version of, Rudolf Hess. who spent his entire life after defecting to the British after the war ended in Spandau prison. Fort Leavenworth should have a room called the Pete Hegseth Memorial Room, and that's where Pete gets to spend the rest of his life thinking about the crimes he has committed, the stupidity of his actions. And there's some generals that need to go down too. If you're wearing 4 stars, you're not going to be forgiven. You shouldn't be forgiven. In America, we need to hold these people accountable. Stop promoting them. Don't allow any companies to put these people on their boards to survive. You have a choice. You get to sit there and shut the companies down by not buying their products. So when you find out that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff retired and ended up going to Raytheon, just say, Raytheon, we're dumping your stock. We're not doing this. We do have the power to do things. We, the people of the United States, we vote, we buy. We've sort of given up on that. We're allowing these things to happen in our name. We can't. We have to fix this, or else it's the end of America as we know it.
Yep. There are some very, very serious ramifications. And unfortunately, I think that none of those things that you say will happen until there is a burn, until we have had disaster. And it looks to me like we are steaming headlong into the rocks right now. So all those things you say may come to pass only because we have lost our way and hit the rocks. But we'll have to wait and see how that's going to work out. But in the meantime, we are very, very grateful for you coming on. And even as this raw situation, this raw episode has been for both of us, it is necessary. This is the kind of uncompromised and unintimidated truth America most needs right now. And we need more of it. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thanks, Colonel. Thanks for having me.
And we appreciate you guys too. Thanks ever so much for being with us today. Be sure and like and subscribe if you haven't done that. Also, as a reminder, we are also on podcasts. I know a lot of people like to get their information that way so they can listen to it as they're going through their day. Some of your friends like it. Make sure you send it to them, folks, so that there's many ways they can get this. We're also on Substack. Don't let them miss this. Share this with people that you care about. Thanks very much, folks, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Daniel Davis Deep Dive. You know we don't have sponsors because we hate to hit you over the head with ads. I don't like them. So show a little love back. Subscribe, like, and send this to somebody you care about.